France is a representative democracy. Public officials in the legislative and executive branches are either elected by the citizens or appointed by elected officials. Referendums may also be called to consult the French citizenry directly on a particular question, especially one which concerns amendment to the constitution. France elects on its national level a head of state, the president, and a legislature. The president is elected for a 5-year term, directly by the citizens. The parliament has 2 chambers. The National Assembly has 577 members, elected for a 5-year term in single-seat constituencies directly by the citizens. The Senate has 348 members, 328 of which are elected for 6-year terms by an electoral college consisting of elected representatives from each département, 8 of which are elected from other dependencies, and 12 of which are elected by the French Assembly of French Citizens Abroad, which has replaced the High Council of French Citizens Abroad, a 155-member assembly elected by citizens living abroad. See Government of France for more details about these political structures. In addition, French citizens elect a variety of local governments. There are also public elections for some non-political positions, such as those for the judges of courts administering labor law, elected by workers and employers, or those for judges administering cases of rural land leases. France does not have a full-fledged two-party system, that is, a system where, though many political parties may exist, only 2 parties are relevant to the dynamics of power. However, French politics displays some tendencies characterizing a two-party system in which power alternates between relatively stable coalitions, each being led by a major party. On the left, the Socialist Party; on the right, Les Républicains and its predecessors. See Politics of France for more details. Elections are conducted according to rules set in the Constitution of France, organizational laws, and the Electoral Code. Elections are always held on Sundays in France. The campaigns end at midnight the Friday before the election. Then, on Election Sunday, by law, no polls can be published, no electoral publication and broadcasts can be made. The voting stations open at 8 a.m. and close at 6 p.m. in small towns or at 8 p.m. in cities, depending on prefectural decisions. By law, publication of results or estimates is prohibited prior to that time. Such results are however often available from the media of e.g. Belgium and Switzerland, or from foreign internet sites, prior to that time. The first estimate of the results are thus known at Sunday, 8 p.m., Paris time. One consequence is that voters in e.g. French Guiana, Martinique and Guadeloupe knew the probable results of elections whereas they had not finished voting, which allegedly discouraged them from voting. For this reason, since the 2000s, elections in French possessions in the Americas, as well as embassies and consulates there, are held on Saturdays as a special exemption. Voters, with the exception of senatorial election, for which there is an electoral college, the voters are French citizens over the age of 18 registered on the electoral rolls. For municipal and European elections, citizens aged 18 or older of other European Union countries may decide to vote in France. Registration is not compulsory, but the absence of registration precludes the possibility of voting. Currently, all youths reaching the age of 18 are automatically registered. Citizens may register either in the place of residence or in a place where they have been on the roll of taxpayers for local taxes for at least 5 years. A citizen may not be legally registered in more than one place. Citizens living abroad may register at the consulate responsible for the region in which they live. Only citizens legally registered as voters can run for public office. There are exceptions to the above rules. Convicted criminals may be deprived of their civic rights, which include the right to vote, for a certain period of time depending on the crime. The application of such rules in the case of certain politicians has been controversial. See for instance the case of Alain Juppé. Voting by proxy is possible when the citizen cannot easily come to vote. The citizen designates a proxy, who must be a voter, from the same commune. The designation of the proxy must be made before a legally capable witness, a judge, a judicial clerk, or an officicer of judicial police, or, outside of France, before an ambassador or consul. In the case of handicapped or severely ill people, an officer of judicial police or delegate thereof can be sent to the home of the citizen to witness the designation. The procedure is meant to avoid pressures on voters. Electoral system. In all elections where there is a single official to be elected for a given area, including the two major national elections, two-round runoff voting is used. For elections to the European Parliament and some local elections, proportional voting is used. Voting procedures. In general, voting is done using paper and manual counting. The voter gets pre-printed bulletins from a table at the entrance of the voting office, as well as an envelope. They enter the isoloir, or isolation booth, where they're hidden from sight, and insert the appropriate bulletin into the envelope. They walk to the ballot box and show their voter registration card and are required to prove their identity. After the officials have acknowledged their right to vote, the ballot box is opened and the voter inserts the envelope. One of the officials traditionally loudly says, "A vote," which can be translated as, "Your ballot has been cast." It is purely ceremonial and has a double meaning. The voter's voice will be taken into account and they've accomplished their civic duty. They then sign the voters' list, and their registration card is stamped. Procedures differ when electronic voting, not widespread in France, is used in some cities, despite some controversy about its safety and effectiveness. Latest election. Presidential, legislative, past elections and referenda. Indirect presidential elections. Third Republic. 1947, 1953, 1958. Other elections. As well as presidential and legislative elections, France also has municipal, cantonal, regional, European, and senatorial elections. Regional elections have been held since 1986 to elect regional councillors and regional presidents, all elected to serve 6-year terms. 2015, 2010, 2004, 1998. 1992, 1986. European Parliament elections for the French delegation to the European Parliament are held every 5 years. 2014, 2009, 2004, 1999, 1994, 1989. Senate. French senators are renewed by halves every 6 years through an indirect electoral college composed of elected officials and general, regional, and some local councillors. 2014, 2011, 2008. Municipal elections to elect city mayors and councillors are held every 6 years. 2014, 2008. 2001, 1995, 1989, cantonal 2008, 2004, 2001, 1998. Referendums. The Constitution of France defines in Article 3 that national sovereignty shall vest in the people, who shall exercise it through their representatives and by means of referendum. The Constitution describes 2 ways for holding a referendum. The President may, on the recommendation from the government or the Parliament, submit to a referendum some government bills. A referendum may be held upon the initiative of 1/5 of the members of Parliament, supported by 1/10 of the registered voters. The Constitution explicitly states that a referendum can be called only on a government bill, which deals with the organization of the public authorities. or with reforms relating to the economic or social policy of the nation, and to the public services contributing thereto, or which provides for authorization to ratify a treaty which, although not contrary to the Constitution, would affect the functioning of the institutions. The second procedure for holding a referendum has several limitations. It cannot be used to repeal laws which are in effect for less than a year, and, if the proposal fails on a referendum, it cannot be resubmitted to a referendum for next 2 years. The second procedure for holding a referendum was added to the Constitution in 2008, and it still has not come into effect. It will come into effect when appropriate legislation is implemented by the Parliament. The Constitution of France can be amended in 2 ways: on a referendum, or by 3/5 supermajority of both houses of the Parliament. Most constitutional revisions went through the supermajority of the Parliament in Congress. Ratification of treaties of accession of states to the EU must go through the same procedure as amendment of Constitution of France. All of ratifications went through the supermajority of the Parliament, except the first EU enlargement in 1973. There were 9 referendums in the Fifth Republic, 2 on Algiers, 2 on amending the Constitution, 2 on EU treaties. French presidential election referendum of 1962, which also amended the Constitution, 1 on EU enlargement, 1 on New Caledonia,